Okay, as a lot of you guys know, basically Garmin Verbs, their metadata syncing or geometric syncing has kind of been broken for a while, or at least a few weeks. So I've come up with somewhat of a workaround. It uses basically a batch file along with FFmpeg to instead of modifying how Garmin Virb works, to modify your video files to make them sync up with Garmin Virb. So like a normal GoPro file, a lot of times if you have multiple video files in your recording, a lot of times the first one will sync up, but everything after that won't sync up. Or if your time synchronization on the first file isn't correct, then that will be off as well. So again, I've written a script that will synchronize your video files. That way when you import them into Garmin Virb, they'll be in sync with your data file or your .fit file normally from like a normal bike computer recording. So the first thing to do, again, so normally in Garmin Virb you'd have the map, you'd have your video on the left, you'd have your usually Google Maps map on the right, and you'd synchronize those or adjust the time stamping on that to match up between them. So to avoid that, first of all, we need to figure out in your fit file or in basically your activity, we need to find a timestamp in that, and then find a correlating timestamp in a video file in order to synchronize those. So the easiest way I've found to do that, most people use Strava, go into Flybys. So that allows you to kind of replay your file. So I've gone into Flybys, have an activity loaded up. I have the video files already downloaded, obviously. So this lets you play it, and it also gives you right here, it gives you a pretty good timestamp of your activity time. So if you click play on here, you want to find, just like in Garmin Virb on old synchronization, you want to find basically an event, usually a turn on an activity to synchronize with. So like here I found in an activity a turn right here, so this is something I can find in my video file to synchronize with. So notate this time, so in this case 12:14:55, and then load up. And again, this was early on in my activity, so I've already renamed, or I've downloaded and renamed my video files. So this is in the first video file, which is probably the easiest to synchronize to, at least for now. So this is the video file I'm trying to synchronize to. You want to play this and find basically the same time in that file. So probably about right there. So that's 3 minutes 22 seconds into my video file essentially. So in part of these scripts I have an Excel document, and this is basically to do time conversions to match up the time stamping that's expected in the video file with between the activity and the video file. So you can load up Excel. This probably would work in Google Docs or whatever they call theirs too. So I've pre-made basically an Excel file. It's looking for a little bit of information, so any of these tan areas are things you should populate or think about populating in order to do basically this time calculation, because what we're looking for is the correct time and format of that time in order to import that and modify the video file. So in here, time zone offset, so set your time zone. I'm central time, US, so I have -5. Set your activity date. You'll need that as part of the timestamp. Should be pretty straightforward to find that. Your activity file event event time. So this should be in a format of hours, minutes, seconds. So use 24 hours time. So 1 p.m. is going to be 13, not 1 p.m. So on my activity, again, I found basically a turn as my event, which is 12:14:55. So I'll enter that here. 12:14 is the minute, 55 is the second. Okay. Next, I want to find the video event time, and this is not in 12 p.m. or any of that. It's in basically minutes, seconds into that video file that you're playing back. Usually you're not going to have hours. It's usually going to be minutes and seconds. So again, I found that same turn on my activity, and that's about 3 minutes 22 seconds in. So this column here is going to be minutes, so 3:22 seconds. Okay, so these columns here you can mostly ignore. This is going to just give human readable time of activity event time, and this is going to be the offset to calculate between the start of the video file and the activity event time, essentially, which you can kind of ignore. What you're looking for is this yellow column here, which is calculated video time. So this is essentially going to be the calculated start time of that video file. So we're just gonna copy that. So that's the start time of what I want this video file to be. Okay, so from here, take this video file, which is the one we just used, drag it onto this batch file of the script. It will pop up and say enter video timecode. In order to paste, you'll just right click, and that will start essentially FFmpeg, and this will modify basically the start time. So the output file will be, if left at defaults, it'll be in the same directory with the same file name, except it'll have a basically underscore TCF for basically timecode fix. So this will then be essentially synchronized with the data that we just entered with it. So again, Garmin Virb, as you know, create a new basically program, import your video clips, which you can just drag and drop. So I'll drag, again, this timecode fix over there. You can drag that down. My video was, again, it was a GoPro, it was inverted, so I'll just rotate it. Go into G-metrics again. Go into data, do your normal import. Because everything's broken right now, it'll probably give you a script error. You can click no or whatever. You can import. So this would just be normal, like you'd import an activity. I've already downloaded mine. You can download that from Garmin. You can download it from Strava, either way. Drag and drop it. Okay, and to see if they're in sync, I use usually the default second template. So it will have, I'll try to find basically the same point in the video, or somewhere there where there's a turn. Okay. So to check it, you can play from there, watch right here, which mine's a little laggy, but it should show essentially your map matching up with everything as well. Okay, so that would typically be for the first file. So most of the time, most of your recordings, GoPro, any of that, you're going to have multiple files. So you can go through, you can do that same process, find a event point in each one and manually sync those. Or if you're lazy, and I'm usually lazy, you can look at, so open your first video file, and you can just find the total length of that file, so 14 minutes 56 seconds. If you're using GoPro or most video recorders, that's going to be pretty consistent. So here's my second file, again 1456. Unless you're dropping frames or losing video, it's going to be pretty consistent. Third one, 1456. So in the Excel, I set up a section at the bottom that basically has additional files and a bunch of numbers. You can enter the video file minutes, video file seconds, and it will take this first time code, which you see matches right here, and it'll just add that to each one. So you'll have a sync point for each of your subsequent video files. So like video 2 for me, I can just take this, copy it, take video 2, so this is the second video in my data set here essentially. Do the same thing, drag it onto the script. It wants the time code. Again, I've copied this second cell here, which has a timestamp that's 14 minutes 56 seconds in advance of the first one. Paste that in. If it comes up with this, I've already done this file in the past. It'll say, do you want to replace it? You can choose yes or no. I'm going to do that in this case. This processing should be pretty quick. It's not re-encoding video, it's not changing audio, it's just adding metadata. It's replacing metadata essentially. So here's my second file. Again, has that underscore TCF. So then I can take that file, go into my media library, that second TCF file, drag it over, make it the second video. Again, all mine's upside down, so I'll do rotate. We'll do G metrics. Again, data, import. Again, I'll basically use that same file that I originally used. Drag it over, or it may be in your list already. Use that log. You don't have to do any of that, and your template should remain the same. I'm screen recording right now, so it's pretty laggy, but you see this starts a little more in advance of the first file. And you can, again, if you want, in the second video file, find, again, an event like a turn. Okay. So I'll play there. Watch my map and my course, which looks like it's changing at about the same time. So yeah, that one's in sync too. I don't have to do any synchronization in here. And again, you basically do the same thing for the third file or the fourth file or any of that. You can just go down this list as long as you've synchronized the first file and everything looks good. And you can continue to just drag and drop those over, paste in the correct time code, and it'll basically change the time code of the file itself, so when you drag it into Garmin Virb, it'll be in sync. So what is it actually changing? So there's a program called Media Info. I'll use the second file here. So this is the one that I have not synchronized. Click on this, go to tree. I'll drag that over. This is the one I did fix. It has the underscore TCF here. Go to Media Info. Drag it over. I'll make it the same view. So essentially, what Media Info is doing, we're viewing the metadata of the file itself. So this is the original, if you look on this side, the original encoded date and tag date. So it's 17, the hour is 17:11:30, and over here the corrected one is 17:26:29. So that's 17:26:29. Again, if we open this, that's exactly what we see here, 17:26:29. So GoPro, most other videos, or most other cameras that are similar to that will just timestamp from the original timestamp when you started the recording. So again, this is our fixed one. That's why when we drag it over to Garmin Virb, it's in sync now with our data essentially. So again, over here we're viewing the second file. If we go to media info of the first file, we can see when we go to tree over here, the encoded date and time is 17:11:30, and that's the same as the second file, 17:11:30. So that's why all your second, third, fourth, every other video after that in your recording needs manual synchronization in programs like Garmin Virb. So if you just drag it over and do this synchronization, then when you go to add those files into Garmin Virb, they'll be in sync, and you don't have to go to geometric sync. You don't have to change activity start time. As long as you find an event and get close to it, your data is going to be in sync with your video. So that should kind of fix that. I've also seen in the forums as well, I think there's an XML file potentially, and that's what Garmin Virb uses in order to essentially, and I think there's some metadata information, or not metadata, but there's information in that XML file with timestamping. You might be able to do something like use the time conversion Excel document, and you might be able to do similar calculations and paste that data into there. That might be easier. That would let you avoid essentially editing your source data, which are your source video files. It's kind of up to you what's easier. I haven't gone through and actually done that, but it's probably another way to do it. All right, hope that helps. Let me know if you have issues. So again, I did all my testing. This was with a GoPro, I think it was a Hero 11 Mini, so there's no GPS, there's none of that, it just has timestamping. It always helps if you synchronize your time before you start a recording too, so open the app on your phone. If you have a GoPro, click on that set time and date before you go on an activity. That helps too, it'll keep it pretty close, at least starting out. Okay, to download and install the script, there'll be a link to the GitHub. Click on the link, obviously. Once you're there, you'll see something like this. Click on code and click on download zip. That will download the scripts. You'll also need FFmpeg, so that's what's used to actually go in and modify basically the metadata of the files. So I'll put a link in there, or you can just look up FFmpeg download. Click on that, ffmpeg.org/download. You can click on the Windows icon, click on that link, and you can, probably the easiest way, click on that GitHub link, and there'll be an essentialsbuild.zip right here. Click on that, it'll download, might take a little bit. Okay, so the first thing that we'll download will be the scripts. You can open that zip file. So you'll see video timecode modifier file folder. Extract that. Should be pretty quick. Then you'll have the FFmpeg, that folder. The only thing you'll need out of there, if you click on that, open the bin folder, you'll need this FFmpeg.exe. So the extracted video timecode modifier folder, open that, click on bin. There'll be a text file that says put FFmpeg.exe here. So just drag and drop from the zip. It'll extract it there. So that's where it's expecting FFmpeg. And then from there you'll have basically the Excel document and the batch file that will go in and modify the timestamp of the video. And you should be good to go.